let's take a.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. I'm Daniel Schmidt. I'm a freshman at the University of Chicago. My question is for Ms. Applebaum. So in 2020, you wrote, those who live outside the Fox News bubble do not, of course, need to learn any of the stuff about Hunter Biden, referring to his laptop, of course. A poll later after that found that if voters knew about the content of the laptop, 16% of Joe Biden voters would have acted differently. Now, of course, we know a few weeks ago, the New York Times confirmed that the content is real. Do you think the media acted inappropriately when they instantly dismissed Hunter Biden's laptop as Russian disinformation? And what can we learn from that in ensuring that what we label as disinformation is truly disinformation and not reality?
I mean, my problem with Hunter Biden's laptop is I think it's totally irrelevant. I mean, it's not whether it's disinformation or, I mean, I don't think the...
So Annie Applebaum is just given the facts that she's ignoring. The fact is 16% of the people polled who voted for Joe Biden said it would have affected their vote had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop was actually authenticated or was real, wasn't Russian disinformation. So that's why it matters. And by the way, there's lots of stuff in there that matters. So she's making that up. She's being stupid on purpose. She's pretending that she doesn't know what the contents of that laptop are. Would you agree that there was things in that laptop that were that are of interest to American voters, Max?
It's totally irrelevant to Joe Biden's victory. Just let's not talk about it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
We should know who Ann Applebaum is. I mean,
okay,
she is one of the premier neocon pundits in Washington, who was on the board of the National Endowment for Democracy, which is, the regime change arm wing of the U.S. government, was set up under the watch of Reagan's CIA director. It's basically a CIA cutout. Her husband is a Polish diplomat who's deeply involved in NATO. He was a journalist who got so excited when he was covering the Afghan Mujahideen that he actually picked up an AK and attacked a Soviet barracks. And when he was called out on it later on, he said, well, I only hit the barracks 3 times in the wall. I didn't shoot any soldiers. Radek Sikorsky, I think his name is. And she recently on Hillary Clinton's podcast claimed without any evidence at all that Tucker Carlson was controlled by an agent of Russian intelligence. He produced no evidence to support that, and Hillary went, mm-hmm. So that's the kind of disinformation that she's accustomed to spouting. I mean, she's actually a part of the U.S. global disinformation infrastructure.
And these people are at the University of Chicago being interviewed by David Axelrod, former Barack Obama top staffer, and they're pretending that someone else is the people who are disseminating disinformation,
right,
as opposed to them, which,
right,
again, remember, he was from government. The biggest purveyors of misinformation and lies are the government. That would be him. Second would be the corporate media. That would be her. And now they're pretending someone else, like they're the they're the people who are guarding authenticity. They're going to make sure that misinformation doesn't get out. They're the biggest purveyors of it. So of course they're the one running around doing that. It's very Machiavellian. You accuse your opponent of the thing you're the most egregious offender of, right? So now they're supposed to be the gatekeepers of what's real and what's not. And of course, you saw her answer. She says, well, I think that, so it doesn't matter if it was authentic. It doesn't matter if we can censor it. If we decide it's not really important, we can lock out the oldest newspaper in America from their social media accounts if they want to report on something that's actually factual, because you decided it doesn't really matter. So censorship, this person gets to decide when censorship is cool, and he is always cool with censorship because he's from the government. Okay.
Hunter Biden's business relationships have anything to do with who should be president of the United States. So I don't.
She doesn't think that the vice president's son, business dealings in foreign countries where his father is in charge of the policy for the United States, she doesn't think that has anything to do with anything. Well, it has tons of stuff. Now we find out from that laptop that he was getting funds for biolabs in Ukraine while he was also investing in the companies that were running those biolabs. And his dad was picking the prosecutors for the government in Ukraine. His dad meaning Joe Biden. So she's just a liar. So these people are, he's a liar. He's from the government. She's from the Washington Post. She's 100% liar. And she's from she works for the NED.
She's on the board of the NED. And
That is unbelievable.
the business relationships of a presidential son do not matter. Unless their name is Donald Trump Jr.
That's right.
And then, we focus on his meetings with some music publicist in Trump Tower and
That's
some
right.
Russian lady. And Ann Applebaum was all over that.
Yeah, when Donald Trump Jr. had a meeting with a lawyer, right, and a music producer, he should be impeached. Trump should be impeached for that. They didn't call the FBI. They just had a meeting with people who said they had dirt on Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is funding the dossier, which is dirt that came out of the Kremlin. According to the guy who put it together, he got that dirt out of the Kremlin to indict Donald Trump.
And lied about it. I mean, Perkins Coie was used to cover the fact that the
Hillary
Clinton
Clinton
campaign was
lied about
funding the dossier that they were filtering through all these hacks and frauds like David Corn. And, Hillary Clinton was harshly punished for that. I mean, she was really held accountable.
So we're going to actually talk about that later in the show. We're going to talk about that very thing. Her funding, the P dossier, as we like to call it, the spy, the Christopher Steele P dossier, and then lied to investigators about if she funded it. So we're going to talk about that. So that was hilarious. So now here's Brian. This is Brian Stelter, right? You know him from the CNNs, and he doesn't understand why more people trust Joe Rogan than trust CNN. I don't know. Why don't you watch both shows? And then you'll know why people trust Joe Rogan over CNN. Nobody even watches CNN, let alone trust them. So you know how bad the news media is? The bad news media, that more Democrats watch Tucker Carlson than watch MSNBC or CNN? Did you know that? Did you know that Tucker Carlson has more Democrats watching him than CNN or MSNBC? Isn't that surprising? It was to me. So here's Brian Stelter. So he's going to get a question along the same vein. Here we go.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Christopher Phillips. I'm a first year at the college. My question is for Mr. Stelter. You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax. They pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist. And yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative? All the mistakes of the mainstream media, and CNN in particular, seem to magically all go in one direction. Are we expected to believe that this is all just some sort of random coincidence, or is there something else behind it?
It's too bad. It's time for lunch. There's a clock that says 30 seconds. But I think my honest answer to you, and I'll come over and talk in more detail.
This is his honest answer. That was the joke answer, that they only have 30 seconds and they want to go to lunch. Here's his real answer to that question. You ready? Here we go.
After this, is that I think you're describing a different channel than the one that I watch.
Everything that guy said was true. You'll notice that Brian Stelter is not going to disagree with one fact that guy just launched at him. He's not going to mention the Hunter Biden thing. He's not going to mention all the misinformation they spewed. He's not even going to mention Chris Cuomo being caught being unethically covering his brother and lying about his own COVID. They're not going to cover any of that. He's not going to even mention it. And he's not going to mention that they covered a evidence-free conspiracy theory that red-baited the president of the United States and called him a traitor for 4 straight years. Of course, they're going to. So here's what the rest of his answer is.
Understand that is a popular right-wing narrative about CNN.
He says it's a popular right-wing narrative. Now, I don't know if you remember, but when Bernie Sanders was running against Hillary Clinton in 2016, there were roomfuls of fucking lefty Democrats chanting CNN sucks. Do you remember that? I remember that. CNN sucks. Those weren't Fox News viewers. Those weren't right-wingers. You can be firmly on the left, like I am, and think CNN sucks, which they do. But that's all they got. That's all they have left now, is to try to divide people who criticize them. Oh, you're a Trumper. You're a this. You're a... That's it. That's all they got. Okay, here we go.
I think it's important when we talk about shared reality and democracy, all these networks, all these news outlets have to defend democracy. When they screw up, admit it.
He's a defender of Max. He's a defender of democracy. That's what CNN does. They defend all these networks are defenders of democracy. What about all that list of lies that guy just read to you? You're not going to address any of them? He's defending democracy, Max. Let's play the rest, and we'll get you in.
But when Benjamin Hall, the Fox correspondent, was wounded in Ukraine, the news crews at CNN and the New York Times stopped what they were doing, and they tried to help.
Oh my
They tried to help
God.
him get out of the country. They tried to
my
find the
God.
dead crew
CNN,
members.
they're such
That's
good
what news
people.
outlets
He's
do.
hiding
That's how
behind-
they actually do work together. To your question about sharing those kinds of connections and trust, we don't talk about it enough, though. We don't share that reality.
Oh my
about how
God.
You're not even talking about what the guy asked you. That's how much, you know how much you don't talk about it? You're not addressing anything that guy said.
He's deploying a wounded journalist as like a human shield.
Yeah, from this criticism.
We all came together and
Yeah.
just held hands and stood in front of the Putin's bullets that struck Benjamin Hall. Except for some reason, journalists in Ukraine keep getting shot near Ukrainian checkpoints. We're not going to talk about that. We all came together in support of imperial goals. And that's what we need to do today. And you're just a naysayer.
Yeah, you're a right winger.
You're against democracy.
You're-
It's like if you criticize Fauci, you're against science. If you criticize Stelter, you're against democracy.
That's right. You don't. They're the defenders of democracy. Here we go.
that happens. And with regards to the regime, I think you mean the President Biden. The last time I spoke with a Biden aide, we yelled at each other. So that's the reality of the news business.
Oh, he's so adversarial. I don't know if you remember the first time he had Joe Biden's press secretary on his show, Brian Stelter. You know what his big first question was? Hey, where are we getting things wrong? And how could we cover the White House better? That's what he asked the paid liar, the press secretary from the White House. How could we cover you better? Not a question about why are you lying, but hey, we're not good enough for you. Could you help us become better news people so we could cover you in a more professional way? That's Brian Stelter's adversarial relationship with the White House.